When we hear the word zombie, our minds immediately drift to Hollywood blockbusters, imagining rotting corpses rising from graves or apocalypses caused by viral outbreaks that turn humans into mindless, flesh-eating monsters. But while these stories are designed to entertain and frighten us in the safety of a movie theater, nature has been perfecting the art of zombification for millions of years, creating horror stories that are far more terrifying because they are absolutely real and happening right now beneath our feet, in the trees above us, and even in the depths of the ocean. The truth is that free will is a luxury not every creature possesses, and in the dark corners of the biological world, there are parasites that don't just kill their hosts but enslave them, hijacking their brains and bodies to perform specific, often suicidal tasks that serve only the parasite's need to reproduce.
Cordyceps fungus, the ant zombie.
Perhaps the most famous and visually disturbing example of this is the cordyceps fungus, which sounds like fiction but is the brutally efficient reality for many insects in tropical forests, specifically the carpenter ant, which, upon breathing in a microscopic spore drifting through the humid air, unknowingly begins a countdown to its own demise, as the fungus slowly grows inside its body, feeding on non-vital organs while leaving the brain intact for the final act, eventually releasing chemicals that override the ant's navigational system, forcing the victim to leave the safety of its colony and climb high up a stalk of vegetation, clamping its jaws onto a leaf with a death grip that is so powerful it remains locked even after death, at which point the fungus finally consumes the internal organs and erupts from the ant's head as a long, alien-like stalk to rain spores down on the ant's unsuspecting sisters below, continuing the deadly cycle. Emerald jewel wasp, the roach rider. But the horror doesn't end with fungi, because in the world of wasps, the emerald jewel wasp has evolved a method of mind control that is so precise it resembles neurosurgery, targeting the American cockroach, which is significantly larger than the wasp, yet stands no chance against the wasp's calculated attack, which begins with a sting to the roach's midsection to paralyze its legs, followed by a second, terrifyingly accurate sting directly into the cockroach's brain, injecting a venom that blocks specific neurotransmitters responsible for the survival instinct, effectively turning the roach into a passive, living zombie that, despite being physically capable of running away, simply allows the wasp to lead it by its antennae like a dog on a leash into a burrow, where the wasp lays an egg on it and seals the exit, leaving the roach to be eaten alive from the inside out by the hatching larva for several weeks, a slow and gruesome death where the victim is aware but unable to react. Leucochloridium, the disco snail. If that isn't disturbing enough, consider the Leucochloridium parasite, a flatworm that invades the bodies of amber snails and travels to their eye stalks, where it swells and pulsates with vibrant colors, mimicking the appearance of a delicious caterpillar, a display designed purely to attract the attention of hungry birds. But the manipulation goes deeper because snails naturally prefer dark, damp places to avoid predators. Yet this parasite chemically alters the snail's behavior, forcing it to march out into the open sunlight, exposed and vulnerable, waving its pulsating, swollen eyes to ensure it gets eaten by a bird, which is the only place the parasite can reproduce, completing a life cycle that relies entirely on the suicidal sacrifice of the host. Horsehair worm, the cricket suicide. The waters of our planet are no safer, as evidenced by the horsehair worm, a creature that starts its life as a microscopic larva eaten by crickets or grasshoppers, growing inside the host's body into a writhing worm that can be several times the length of the host itself, coiling tightly within the body cavity. And since the adult worm lives in water but the cricket lives on land, the parasite produces proteins that sabotage the insect's central nervous system, inducing a thirst so unquenchable and a behavior so erratic that the cricket eventually flings itself into the nearest body of water, drowning instantly, at which point the long, thin worms burst out of the cricket's submerged corpse in a tangled knot to find mates, leaving the hollowed-out shell of their victim behind.
Saculina barnacle, the body snatcher.
Even the ocean's crabs are not safe from the Saculina barnacle, a parasite that injects itself into a crab and grows root-like tendrils throughout the host's body, digesting it from within while effectively castrating it. And if the victim is a male crab, the parasite alters its hormones to make it physically and behaviorally female, forcing the crab to groom and protect the parasite's eggs as if they were its own, nurturing the very thing that has destroyed its life, which is a level of biological violation that seems almost cruel.
Toxoplasma gondii, the cat laver.
We must also look at the microscopic world, specifically Toxoplasma gondii, a parasite that can only sexually reproduce in the gut of a cat, but to get there, it often infects rats and mice, rewiring their brains to remove their innate fear of predator scents, making the smell of cat urine not terrifying, but actually attractive to the rodent, ensuring it walks directly into the jaws of a cat, a mechanism that scientists are still studying to understand how it might subtly affect human behavior, given that billions of people carry this parasite. These examples are just a glimpse into the complex, ruthless, and fascinating world of parasitic mind control, proving that in nature, the boundary between the living and the undead is not as clear as we might hope, and that for millions of creatures, the zombie apocalypse isn't a movie, it is their daily reality.